Right.
I was just looking.
I think you did fine.
We've got a few minutes.
Yeah.
See, that's.
Because 11:56.
Behind you. Close. Did you give us some? Yeah.
Because I'm on meeting. Now we can.
Hey, Teresa.
Hi,
How are you?
I'm good, busy, but I am well.
Good.
I hope all of you are well.
More or less.
More or less.
All right, should we get started, Teresa? Usually if the chair isn't there, then the vice chair would run the meeting. Does that sound good?
That sounds like a good idea.
Okay. Good, let's call the meeting to order. Victor, could you do a roll call, please?
Just make sure I record. All right. Kathy Macho,
Here.
Anna Mulder,
Here.
Gail Brown,
Here.
Kathleen Leo,
Here.
Elias Ventura.
Here.
And we do have Teresa Johnson via Zoom, so we do have a quorum.
Right.
Teresa can participate, but just can't vote on anything. I also want to introduce, obviously you guys know Ben Vealing, our arborist, but John Eckelangeli, he was here. We had a zoning committee meeting, and since we're talking about zoning code stuff a little bit on our agenda, I figured he asked if you should just stay. I said, yeah, just stay. We're talking about trees and zoning code, so it didn't make sense. If you have questions or anything, yeah, so.
All right, moving along. Did everybody get a chance to check out the minutes from our meeting on January 19th?
Yes.
Any comments or changes? Do I have a motion to approve?
I do.
Second,
Second it.
all those in favor? Aye. Yes. Opposed? All right, Victor, any board communications this month?
Tree related, no.
Okay.
There it is.
Good, should we do old business first then?
Public comment for something not on the agenda.
Oh, sorry. Does anybody have public comment on something that's not on the agenda? Linda.
Linda Rockwitz, 519 East Third Street. And I'm just here kind of to inform or whatever. If you didn't, a few weeks ago, my neighbor John Wayman and I came to city council and suggested that we have the same ordinance for cutting trees on public property. We have it private property as public property. Well, that was, that, first we went to planning commission. And it was, there are, sorry, I'm having one of those days where the tongue and the brain does not quite match up. There's passionate, feelings opposing, having regulation on private property for trimming trees on the bluff. So, planning commission barely passed a recommendation to suggest to the city council to invest in a study of the stability of the bluff. And so at that council meeting where they considered it, there was still passionate opposition. And it appeared to me that it will, and I understood that. I get how we don't want to be regulated. And so anyway, I suggested that we have a committee, and city council formed the committee. It isn't going yet. And I'm not even sure I'm going to be on the committee. I have not been appointed yet. So I'm just here running my mouth, maybe. But what I'm hoping for, I want everybody I don't want people to start out thinking they're gonna push this regulation on us. I'm not going to push for regulation. I'm not personally afraid the bluff is gonna collapse. It hasn't in all these thousands of years that it's been there. Could it? Yes. Am I insured for it? No. But I'm even thinking of building a house next door because we love our location. But I think it does make sense to try to get everybody on the same page. 2 summers ago, there was a massive cutting on our street. Just practically every tree was removed, and it's a blight. It's ugly, and I thought this was the place to come and say, so let's see if we can just get some information out there. If we can make everybody on below and above the bluff aware of the conflicting experts or whatever, and maybe come to a consensus. That's my hope. That this committee will come to a consensus of what our best practices. And the city already has, Matt brought up at city council meeting, we have the best practices. So if we could just make everybody aware, and of course, this whole thing has gotten ugly with people being mad at other people, and maybe we can undo that. Who knows? That's my goal, and that's all. So I just thought this seemed like somebody I should tell about this.
Thanks for the update. That's awesome. When is the committee due to start, Victor?
We are accepting applications until end of next week or mid next week. So I expect March 4th is when they'll make appointments, and then the committee will then decide when their meetings are gonna take place. So
And the goal then is to determine best practices and
I think the goal right now,
meeting of the minds.
yeah, but basically the goal is to have that committee make recommendations to council either on best practices or any other problems they see, or other solutions they see, or other questions and studies they might want to pursue. So though there's really no set goal other than trying to find some common ground and present to council what they discover.
Other questions from the board?
No.
Thank you, Linda.
Thanks, Linda.
All right, let's discuss the 2024 schedule. Victor?
Typically, so I didn't put the schedule in here because obviously we know it's the 3rd Friday of the month at noon. We put this off to this agenda from last meeting because Teresa, and I can let her speak, but of course she has a job now that conflicts with her meeting time here. So one of the questions posed was, does the board want to continue meeting on Friday at noon, in which case, Teresa would not be able to attend and probably would not be able to serve on the board, or are we willing to look at another date and time to accommodate her? So Teresa, I don't know if you want to talk a little bit about your situation there.
Yeah, so I'm currently working at the community college in Petoskey, and I have to be on campus from 8:30 to 5 o'clock. So I would love to remain on the tree board if, everyone is willing and able to move it to a time outside of the regular workday. But I would also understand if this is a time that works for everybody. And you just want to keep it at noon on Fridays. Maybe I would be able to get back into it at a future time if that's the case.
Let's see, how should we do this? Should we just do a poll?
I'm okay with changing it. Frankly, it's, you
I'm
know,
okay.
I'm not, it
No, I'm
doesn't
not
work
either.
for me.
I'm fine with it changing.
you're not fine with changing it?
No,
Oh, okay.
it's too hard and how their schedule.
I'm gonna suggest probably, unfortunately, Teresa, that maybe we better leave it where it is, unless you have other thoughts, Victor.
Yeah, Teresa, there's two board members right now that doesn't work for changing it. So, yeah, I guess at that point, does it make sense to change the meeting?
I don't love it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Sorry, Teresa.
No, I completely 100% understand. It makes me sad, but I'm trying something new for a few months here and this is where we are at. I would like to offer my assistance in writing articles if you guys still want help with that from somebody who's not on the board, and if that's even possible, I would be more than happy to continue helping with that.
No, that'd be great. Love to have your help.
Yeah, and sometimes it takes us a while to find a new tree board member, so we might not find one until your schedule changes again, maybe, so.
Yeah.
Or, yeah, but all right, so we'll keep the schedule then set for noon on third Friday of the month.
Okay. Good. Let's see, next item, elect chair and vice chair.
So Teresa is your current chair and Dana is your current vice chair, so we would need a nomination for a new chair, and a new vice chair, or same vice chair.
There's some challenges to this. I'm chair of another board,
Yeah,
Gail's chair of another board.
wow, so that only leaves Kathy Leo, because I
Kathy.
don't think a city council person could be a
I don't think so either.
chairperson.
I'm sure it can't be.
Look.
No, this can't happen. Are there rules against being a chair in more than one board?
No, there aren't rules, but I think it happened one time at a council meeting a couple years ago where it was brought up and they preferred not to. They talked about their preference, but there is no rule per se, I don't think. I have to double check.
I did check with a past city council member who said there was not.
Yeah, there was, I don't think there's a rule.
There's no rule.
Looking ahead.
Does
I-
this council member live with you?
Yes,
Yeah.
in full disclosure, yes. I did mention before the meeting.
Yep.
I have a serious aversion to public
Okay.
speaking. This is a huge thing for me to be able to sit on this board
I think that's.
and
fair.
speak right now, but I've never run a meeting. No.
Given the circumstances, I think, because there's no, I think
Dana would be,
it's
you
okay,
don't
Dana.
mind.
I think really we really don't, it's a very hard choice here.
Do you mind, Dana? Would you mind doing it? You're
No,
doing it.
I'm
From
just
what
trying to
I've seen,
think
you're
of
doing
how
great.
there would be less of a sense of impropriety. Could I be acting chairperson until we get our new member and then maybe they would do it? Or is it just?
I don't think
semantics?
I think there'll be an
Semantics.
understanding that, you know, this is just the way it is. So if someone nominates you, I think, I mean, it's, Gail's also a chair and it would,
yeah.
it applies, but a council person, my understanding, shouldn't be chair, so. of
Yeah,
a meeting.
please.
I think that is in the rules somewhere,
Yeah,
isn't it? It seems like I've read that.
So, you're gonna nominate someone?
I was
Kathy?
gonna nominate Dana.
As
Thank
chair.
you, Kathy.
And I'll second.
Okay. We need a vice chair though.
Gail second. But we've got to vote on this one.
Oh, sorry.
All in
You never
favor?
know.
All in
Aye.
favor? Yep.
Yes.
Any opposed? Okay, now vice chair.
Can a council member be vice chair?
I would stay away from it.
Yeah.
Yes.
We haven't done it in
It is
the past.
climate.
Gail, can
We
you
haven't
do
done it.
vice chair?
It is,
If we don't tell Bill.
It would be
Really
just the
hard.
occasional time when I can't be at a meeting, which I
It's
think
been
I
rare.
had perfect attendance last year.
you guarantee that?
And Victor, is it possible at some time later in the year, if we get a new member and we have somebody, I don't know if you want me to call them or you call them, Carol Leonard.
Yeah, well, we'll talk about that after.
Okay.
Let's just do a vice chair now.
So can we like later in the year vote again? Like if that person might be willing, just,
There's nothing wrong. There's nothing against that.
okay.
If the board wants to do that.
Okay.
Okay,
I'll
then
accept
I
it
would
if
not-
it's vice chair.
All right, all those in favor? I'm not letting you.
Well, we got Dan a nomination and who seconded that?
I'll second it.
All those in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay,
All right.
Gail is vice chair.
I won't be able to go
It's
home.
not a big heavy lifting board here.
We won't tell anyone.
All right,
Tell Bill.
okay,
Okay,
number 3.
number 3, let's look at the implementation matrix.
Well,
Goals, sorry.
Is that this?
So, yeah, so if you remember, last 2 meetings, we ranked and scored all of our implementation matrix goals, the tree plan goals. And now we're gonna decide our priorities for this year, 2024. And so what I did was pulled out all the goals on this page that you see are the ones that you guys ranked the highest, which were all 1. And obviously, we can't do all those in 1 year, but to select some of those to ones you want to focus on this year. The first one is the street tree plan that we're working on,
Yes,
of course. But if there's any 3 or 4 of those that you think, come to the top that you guys want us to work on as either as a board or as staff.
and is the green on some of these?
The green, that's the way the font came through. That doesn't
Okay.
mean anything.
I was gonna say, oh, okay, I thought maybe you'd already.
There's a copy and
priorities.
paste thing.
Let's see.
And some of these are staff, some of these are tree board. Most of these are staff, actually.
Right, I think so too. So.
I think there's a lot to be said for identifying hazardous trees and
What number is that?
that's 5.7.5 on the second page. And removing those and then that's important. And then the one below that is remove diseased trees as needed, but I don't know, I guess. Do you remove a tree that's partway into a disease cycle? It's kind of an odd question, I guess.
I have a
Yeah, what do we
question
mean
about
by
one of
that?
these.
What do we mean?
Which one is that?
4.7.12.
Yep.
Consider implementing for adding or approving tree bases. Sorry, what's that?
Tree bases are like, in the downtown where we put flowers around the trees, so those are the base, do we have mulch as the base, or do we
Oh.
have,
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Okay,
And the
no,
issues are
that's
when,
not critical.
when we plant new trees, typically what a landscaper would do would be to put mulch on top of the root ball. It keeps moisture in,
Keep it away. from
weeds
the middle.
out, provides nutrients.
But
So
not create-
that has not necessarily been happening. And then we've had some problems in the city where there's been a lot of string trimmer damage to trees,
Got
like
it.
the ones here.
Okay.
So I would say, to me, that would be
Oh,
biggie.
you think that's a priority?
I do.
I have that marked as a priority too. And also a question, the tree bases in the downtown area, isn't the DDA in charge of that or working on it or something?
Yeah,
Yeah,
That's
they
a
are,
DDA thing.
That's just downtown.
right,
So
but-
this-
yeah.
This would be like all the new trees that we put in at the spillway and Soren Park and back here.
Well, I just wondered because it says all street trees and park trees. It doesn't.
So when the DDA created a plan for this Main Street, street trees, they did get the input from the DDA, I'm sorry, the tree board on, tree bases and stuff. So when that comes we're kind of staying away from that at the tree board right now because the DDA has a plan that they want to get to on Main Street
Well,
for trees.
that's what I.
But it's gonna be a couple
understood.
years probably before they get to it, because it was a high cost. So I think we're trying to stay away from Main Street tree bases right now and focus on others because they may end up executing their plan.
So I can just write in that exception.
Yeah.
May I ask a question? And because these are looking at staff projects, et cetera, also or with us. Once we pick our priorities, does it go to staff, whoever, whatever role that is? And they have to try to prioritize it too within their own
Yes.
schedule?
Right, so I'll send it out to whether it's Lucas or if it involves Ben for some of these things, then I'll send it out to them and try to work on them. Or if it's me, some of the budget stuff, funding things are my responsibility.
And we should, maybe everybody identifies their most important things and maybe we'll vote on it or something.
Yeah, you guys wanna, I think that's a good way to go about it.
I would also like to suggest 6.4.6, 6.4.10. These are both related to zoning,
Which we'll
Which
talk
is-
about.
timely. Yeah,
So we'll-
so we might as well just do that, I think, and get it off the list.
6.4.6.
6 and 2 down from that, 10.
So we'll talk about that in our next agenda item.
Yep.
But 6.4.6.
So that gives us, is that 5 or 4?
That gives us 5.
What, whoops, I only got 4.
5.7.
5.75, 5.77, 4.7.12, 6.46, and 6.4.
5.7.
Do we have something on here, Victor, about a defined watering schedule for new trees?
We may, but they weren't the highest ranking goals. I don't think it made the highest ranking.
Like, you look at the top of the second page, is that what you're thinking about?
Considering watering methods.
Can we change that to ensure watering methods? Back to the old, should we be putting trees in if we can't keep them watered?
Mhm.
Like we have a number of
Right.
19 already that are done.
Um,
That makes 5. Oh, sorry. What else did
okay,
you-
I just have one other question.
Yeah,
8.5.7. Request the city dedicate annual monies. Now, I know the city has a budget for the trees. I can't remember if any of it was specifically for tree planting.
No, so right now, the way we have our tree budget set up is basically kind of as needed thing. So if we come kind of for money, if we have enough money, sometimes we spend more money on removals, that's what I'm trying to get at. And we have less money for tree care or tree maintenance or tree planting. So the idea here was to say, hey, we have X amount of money that we're gonna contribute each year to maintenance, regardless of trees that have to come down or whatnot. So we're gonna, that's the idea of this goal.
let's add that one as a voting one that we'll vote on.
Yeah,
Anything
I
else?
think if we don't, and I don't know how urgent it is, just because I know it's not in time for another budget, but I think if the tree board isn't pushing council for kind of a budget item, we're not gonna.
I think that's gonna involve me, I guess, a little bit sitting down with Ben to figure out, depending on how much money we have, like what can you do with X amount of dollars when it
Right.
comes to, maintenance and what are the higher priorities for maintenance? So like,
Right.
we'll have to sit down and talk about that and then we can figure out how much money, obviously, the sky's the limit with how much money you need, but how much money we're actually gonna get is a different story.
5.7.8. Down the first page.
Okay, yeah.
Considering what Linda just told us about the strong opposition to people being told what they can do on their private property, and that on her street, there was a clear-cut lot that now looks horrible. I don't know if that included the street trees or not.
No.
It did not, okay.
Kind of.
It might not be a bad idea. I should read out 5.7.8. Require applicants requesting to remove street trees for non-view reasons to replant a tree in its place or at another agreed upon location or contribute the value of the removed tree to the city's tree fund. This,
It doesn't really have to do with the bluff, but yeah, I think it's
Right,
valuable. So that could be easy enough accomplished.
And the reason why it's not to deal with the bluff, because in our bluff trimming policy, we have that we can require people to plant trees when they're, so that's already in that policy. So this is related to non-street.
and this says non-view
Yeah,
residents.
so yeah, that's a good one.
But just because it seems to be important, really important to people, they feel strongly about it.
Very hot topic.
How many of these,
Yeah, we already got.
what's our upper limit of
I mean,
priorities?
we got
This is calculus, right? 1, 2,
Huh?
3, 4. Limits isn't that calculus?
plus the street tree plant stuff, we have about 8 right now, so I think we should be good with this. I mean, we can start working on all eight of these and
Okay,
see what we get.
sounds good.
But and if you need a priority between them, that's some.
What I'll
let us
do,
know.
what I'll do is sit down and look at these
Mhm.
and then reasonably see what can fit where in my schedule and staff schedule. And then bring them back to you as dean, but the goal is to work on these all year. So.
Okay,
Victor, I just noticed there's another one, create restrictions on the clear cutting of properties.
Yeah, 6
6 point.
We'll be talking about that for our zoning code.
Okay,
So a lot of these ones in the 6.4 section we'll talk in the zoning code and see if that's.
it's just that if we already know that there are a number of local people that feel strongly about
Yeah.
that sort of thing, it might behoove us to address it.
Yeah, you're right. You guys comfortable with that? I don't think we can vote on it.
No, I know, I think that's okay. Yep.
great.
Do you have any suggestions, Sally?
Okay, street tree plan next steps, and my apologies again for not having this done sooner.
Let me see.
So what's this?
We looked at this last year, actually, it was exactly a year ago that we started discussing street trees, I noticed. So this has been a one-year project. And if you would like to just go through it quickly, some of this you've seen already. Our vision from the master plan, the tree plan. Why have street trees? I think there's some good compelling reasons there. Do you guys want me to read it or you're familiar?
We've seen this pretty.
Yeah, you've seen that, okay. Why have a plan, and the reasons why. And then, what our timeline has
Yeah,
been, and I've updated this. So where we are is we've got our priorities established, and now we're looking at how do we implement it?
Yep.
And how do we fund it? Yep. And we've seen this before, our street tree planning units, and then they're written on the next slide. And recommendations and phases, so. We went through, of course, and did our site visits and. This is what we came up with, phase 1 would be hopefully this year if we can make it happen, phase 2 next year. So
So we have that's good, that was harder to see there. We have our high priority projects and then we have our medium priority projects.
Yep.
The high priorities included, Ann Street, Spring Street, Pine Street, and Oak Street right now, and Traverse Street.
And some of these we've agreed we can't do anything about right now, for example, downtown with the street trees and Bay Street with the potential wheelway extension.
Is this in the packet?
This presentation, no.
Okay,
Yeah, yeah.
thank you.
It's not
Losing
Victor's
it.
fault either, it's all
Huh?
my fault. And it's,
Okay.
do you want to send it to everybody, Victor?
I will,
Okay,
yeah, yeah.
Sorry.
Sorry, no, I was just, yeah.
That's
doing
okay.
that.
Yeah. So this is a draft of what I thought we could maybe have discussion around today, and a lot of the recommendations kind of fall into three areas. The removal of diseased, dead and dying trees. So that actually was one of the goals we just spoke about. Then ongoing maintenance of trees, another goal we spoke about, and things relating to new trees. And I'm gonna have to look at my copies because I can't read that.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, it's an opposite angle here. Okay. This is new, you guys don't have this yet, I'm so sorry. Oh, it's easier to read on that screen.
Is it, I can turn the light off there.
Yeah, I think there's too much light on that.
Yeah.
Maybe that's. That's
That's
better.
better, yes.
Yeah. Much better.
So under removal of diseased, dying and dead trees, I guess first of all, do we all agree that these three categories are all important? Taking care of dead things, maintaining the ones we've got, and then adding new trees.
Makes
Okay,
sense.
so under the removal of diseased, dead and dying trees, we had talked rather than spending a bunch of money to do a tree inventory, rather to keep it a little bit simpler and maybe have DPW schedule a drive-through once a year to locate these trees and that need to be removed. And maybe when, you know, if these are things that we agree on and decide we want to do as part of our implementation, maybe we ask council to give us money to do that. So I don't know how that would work. Does it come out of the general fund, Victor? We have some money for doing that?
I guess it depends on where the trees are located.
Who's responsible for the actions of this employee? I mean, this is why I've resisted this in the past, which is, it sounds great that we say we're gonna take some from DPW who doesn't have any training in this, hasn't taken a plant pathology class, is not certified in any kind of risk assessment, management of hazard, doesn't carry an insurance policy. And they're gonna make determinations that directly affect the public safety. And is the city willing to? And then how do you rank the trees that are selected relative to the rest of the trees? I mean, the only thing that somebody has to do in a court of law is show that the city didn't act in an appropriate due process. And if you say, well, we thought that was true, is dangerous, what a judge is gonna say is, how do you know that this tree wasn't more dangerous? You have to measure them together. That has to be an assessment that has to be, you know, it has to be done by an expert. It has to be objective, not subjective. And then it has to be maintained, and it has to be compared to other things. If it seems like a good idea, but it doesn't meet the goal, which is protecting the city and its residents from liability and from loss. And I think that's one thing that.
So why don't we agree that this one needs some more investigation?
I was questioning what time of year would you do it?
And that's where you have an expert, you know, that comes in, you know, you have an arborist.
Right,
that-
yeah,
that knows these things. So yeah, let's look at a little, let's talk.
I think it's a good thought. Let's just say we need to
Okay,
do some more
that's
research.
a good idea.
And then I like the idea of having council commit to getting dead trees out, because there are some. Like, I don't know whether they aren't coming out because it's a budget item or.
Well, I mean, generally, it's both a budget and a time thing. I mean, for example, there's probably several dead trees around town. I mean, when Lucas has a concern, sometimes we contact Ben, but we try to determine if a tree is hazardous or not. And that's really our determinant, like, all trees can be hazardous, but we look at it and we're like, all right, is this gonna come down anytime soon on something critical? It might come down, but is it gonna come down on a power line or a house or a person or a car? If it's not, then we kind of like, all right, we say, okay, it's, you know, not as urgent to take it down. We have other stuff to do. But if it's a hazardous tree, one that we took down on private property that was gonna hit the Blackbird Museum, we're like, all right, this has had branches fall in the Blackbird Museum. That's a historic building, the oldest building we have in town. We need to remove this dangerous tree. So there's a lot, like Ben had kind of mentioned earlier, there's a lot that goes into assessing, you know, how you compare which tree is more dangerous, but we don't necessarily just have a set of items of funds, amount of money just to go out and do it. It's right now, it's like if we determine something's dangerous enough that it needs to be removed, so because it poses a threat to someone or something, and then we just go and remove it.
And that's really part of the DPW, keeping the utility lines
Yeah.
free, so that's really part of
That's-
their budget, not the.
Well,
tree
there's
board budget.
two separate, we have a separate budget just for electric lines.
Okay,
But if there are trees like in parks or on streets that are gonna hit,
okay, got it.
yeah, so that's a separate line item, so.
And that's usually determined by tree inventory. So like when the trees are assessed and that they're given a ranking and that ranking is then compared. So you take all the high risk trees and put that in removal or correct.
I understand, okay.
And maybe this is a little OCD going on, but it'd be nice if we knew that once a year there was like an orderly examination of all trees. Rather than just like somebody's driving around, oh, there's one, you know, it'd be nice to know that it's looked at once a year. Do you think that's doable?
I don't know, from an arborist, I mean, a DPW point of view, I don't know. It seems something more like something an arborist would do, honestly, because I don't think our DPW guys would be able to go out there and say, this tree is, usually our guys, yeah, usually our guys go out there and, it's based on, we're pretty much complaint driven. And then if we have to send out a DPW person, they contact Lucas and then Lucas lets me know and either after assessment, be like, is this something we need to call Ben for? Because if it's like, sometimes people call us like, oh, this tree is dead or dying, and then Ben comes out there is like, no, it's not dying or dead, it's missing some leaves or something, like
It's the winter.
it's the, or, right.
I mean, we have these conversations, right? Like the tree is leaning, but there's a lot of data that says.
So, yes, so it's usually on a complaint, right now it's a complaint driven business, but I don't think a DPW, I would probably be more comfortable with an arborist doing it because he's gonna know. But I don't know how feasible that is, to go around the city and just, look at what it's kind of like you saying, it's like not an update of the tree plan, but just looking at, taking that plan we have currently and being like, all right, where's our more dangerous trees and let's check them out this year to see how they're doing.
Well, and again, this is, I think I'm using a vernacular that, I keep saying tree inventory and it sounds like council or somebody wants to resist this, but that's really what we're doing. We're taking a census of what we have and we're measuring certain criteria and trying to rank what's the most, most important. I think that it's really important to have some documentation on how we do this. Even if we just number each tree, which we've already done, we don't necessarily have to collect map attributes because we've already done a lot of that. But if we drive around and look for things, we have to where a tree fell and smashed a car in Harbor Springs, and the city of Harbor Springs bought a new car because there wasn't any indication that that tree had ever been looked at. And it was pre-inventory days, and we couldn't show that we'd actually taken reasonable steps to protect that person's car from damage in a reasonable parking spot where they've been told to park, right? So, we didn't have anything written that would indicate that. And that's what I'm saying. It's great we can drive around and look at stuff, but we should be writing this down, I think is the addition. And whether we call it an inventory or a drive-through, I think we need to document that.
I think documenting is important. So I think I'll sit down with you and try to work out something that's.
And I think that this process addresses everything that's there. I mean, that Dana has nicely outlined for everybody, which is that we would pick up that some trees have been poorly pruned, and that gives us a datum, right? It says we got a lot of trees that are damaged by pruning, who's doing this pruning, then we can start driving that forward with policy or contacting whoever's doing it. Or sometimes.
To me, I think it's important to get the dead stuff out first, number one. And then I think of second importance then is maintaining trees. The trees we have. So let's see, we could go down to that then. And again, this is like, whether you want to call it a drive-through or some type of documentation. Like a dentist, like I'm going to flag tooth number 23 to keep an eye on next year. Could be as simple as just taking a map and putting a little X's. I just hate to see things overcomplicated that's going to take money away from the actual physical action of maintaining trees, trimming, whatever needs to be done, spraying. Okay, this is, so the watering of trees, this is where I located this. So I still feel like we don't quite have that down yet to where somebody's monitoring the gator bags and making sure they're watered and.
I can look into it some more. I mean, I don't.
Yeah.
Lucas has worked on that quite a bit on getting the irrigation.
I
fixed,
think
but
we've
it's
made
a matter
progress
of-
from where we were, but I mean,
I mean, I agree with Dan, we don't have a number, right?
But we don't have it, but there's also no knowledge of how much water is actually going into these trees. Flow.
Right, we want somewhere between 3/4 and 1 inch of water and, you know, to make up for evapotranspiration every week, but it depends on a couple other things, but we don't even have a base number of how much irrigation we get, right? Like we
so how long does it take for a gator bag to empty?
well, I mean, it kind of depends.
On the tree.
I mean,
Okay.
yeah, I mean, it depends on, I mean, it depends on the ambient temperature, some of that's gonna be evaporation, some of it's gonna be other things, but.
Doesn't it just drip?
All
Like whether it's,
Yeah, but it's open in the
drier.
environment, so if it's hotter, it'll evaporate out the top as fast as it goes out the bottom,
Ballpark.
so 2-3 days.
Okay.
But it also.
yeah, it seems like this could be another documentation thing where we've got like a city map and here's a big area where there's a bunch of gator bags and here and here. And so however often the guy just does it, you know, every 2 or 3 days in the summer.
Janet,
It's not a year-round thing.
hold on, once, I just,
And we're only talking about newer trees, right?
Yes,
We don't water.
first
trees
2 or
after
3
what,
years. After that, they're on their
3
own.
years?
My
That's,
book, yeah.
is
I
that,
guess,
Yeah,
okay,
and I just want to pause for a second because, city agenda, I thought we were talking about the street tree plan next steps, and I feel like this has kind of gotten into,
oh,
we already.
Oh,
We're
oh.
talking about the street trees.
yeah, but the street tree plan that we put, I just feel like we're kind of diversion to a maintenance.
so what are we,
Yeah, I'm just
Why
kind
are
of
we
confused.
putting in trees if we can't maintain them? No, I think it's all part of the same package. It's making sure that the street trees are A, alive, B, healthy, and C.
No, I do get that. I felt for the discussion item, we were talking about, we had asked Lucas to look at how many trees could fit into
Mhm.
into the quarters that we asked
Yep.
for, and then we were gonna talk about next steps for that.
for these trees? Oh, so you were specifically wanting to address.
Okay, well,
What do you think?
let's go to new trees. then.
Yeah, I think
That's a little bit
because
more.
we
Okay.
could get into a whole meeting just about maintenance and removal of existing
Yeah,
trees,
yeah.
but. This
Can we
identified
schedule that for
tree.
next meeting then?
Yeah, we
maybe?
can do that.
Yeah, let's defer.
And I'll
that.
sit down with Ben, talk
Sure.
to Ben about
Yep.
some of these things.
Okay.
Okay, then,
New trees as well.
new trees. So we had talked a little bit about, doing like a kickoff for the Harbor Springs street tree plan. And asking council to, fund the first 12 trees or asking them to match, donated trees. We could have something in the paper about it. We could put something on Facebook about it.
Yeah.
Ms. Councilwoman, what do you think about that? Do you think the council would like to participate with us?
So 12
Yeah.
trees approximately is $7,200.
How much?
$7,200.
$7,200?
Yeah, if you say $600 per tree per estimate to maintain it.
I would think, can't speak for everybody in council, obviously, but a specific ask, you know, with a specific dollar tied to it, would be,
Good.
I think that's a good way to approach it, to be honest. So I mean, I like that.
Okay,
And which trees do you want to,
So if
which
you
trees
go-
do we want to
if
look
we
at
go back
first?
to the recommendation page.
Under new trees.
This was maybe something that was handed out last
Okay.
week.
Okay.
Picture, it's the one that's, recommendations and phases.
This one?
Oh, that, okay.
Yes.
Got it, I got it.
So looking at phase one, and again, Lucas, I think, was verifying. These are all the phase ones.
Yeah, so Lucas, so Ann Street between M119 and Lake, we estimated about 6 in the north of Summit on Ann Street.
Okay,
It would be said careful of the trees south of Summit. So you have 6 right there on Ann Street. And he said on Spring Street between Maple and Lake, if the school is on board, there is some room on the west side of the sidewalk for some nice large trees, and maybe Brad, we can talk to you, because at the high school there's not a lot of trees in the public right of way there. I don't know if there was a reason for that at all. There was a security reason, a site thing issue, I don't know, but we'll talk, okay, so there's 3 or 4 trees right there, that's 10 trees, and then Pine Street between Elm and Spring, he said wait until the high school construction is finished.
Yeah,
That
I
might-
think that makes
That
sense.
makes sense.
Do we want to do we're talking 12 trees.
Yes, but then
We
there's,
want to do them in clumps. It's
Not all in one area.
Well, I'm saying, I don't know that we want to put 1 tree or 2 trees in each
No,
of
I
these
think-
locations. I'm thinking we have 6.
right, we do,
The Ann Street is 6, we
Exactly.
would put 6 there, and then
and that's
one
why,
other location, put another 6. So you have an impact.
so if we do, but it depends on, if we get 12 trees from council, then how many trees we can get from the public, that'll help us
Well,
out.
but we
Okay, we
could
can
fill
do that.
in those others
We could, yeah.
after. I mean,
I'm just going through the list of what Lucas has determined we have here. So
Got it.
Lake Street, he says the north side, there's
Yeah.
about 10 or more trees. The south side, he's concerned it has overhead power,
Yep.
and any trees that grow over 15 feet will interfere with the communication line. So we have to be more careful if you planting trees on that. Then on Traverse Street, with Hanky and Third, he thinks there's about room for 3 to 5 trees on the east side of Traverse Street.
Any thoughts, board members and priorities where we want to start?
It seems to me that we just start at the top, and I agree that we should get it done. If we have 6, put the 6 trees in, finish that one, cross it off our list, and then move down to the next one. And keep, because we can't do Pine Street, right? We have to wait. Pine Street between Elm and Spring.
Yeah.
And then we have 8 trees. Would be in addition to the 8 trees we have currently?
Where do you see that?
but that,
Oh, yeah, there's 8 trees, right,
What
that we have in our inventory?
Oh,
On that.
so we could use those as well?
you mean we have
From the
money?
you mean from what we've got donated to us? Yes. We still have 7 or 8 trees that we have not planted that we've been
Right.
donated.
So we've got 8, we have 8 plus the 12 then.
Yes.
So we could do the Ann
Right.
Street and the Lake Street.
So you're saying the council is approving this 12 trees?
I'm assuming, yeah.
Awesome, thank you.
Like, as I said before, right? I can't speak for the rest of the council, but
So what do folks think? Ann Street and Lake Street?
and then the spring.
And then Spring Street, yeah.
If
That
there's-
Do you want to do?
would be 20 trees, yeah.
Okay.
Right.
Exciting.
Is it better to have a bigger ask?
Hmm?
Is it better to have a bigger ask and then let council whittle it down to 12?
Well, I also think though, we want to maybe work out some money for, maintenance. So we want to we can't just, I don't think, spend all our money for the trees. So when we get talk about maintenance, then, because that's gonna be important as well.
So, yeah, I think,
We got a lot to
I think
maintain.
so. Sounds like a
We got a lot of work to
doable
do.
amount.
Shall we ask, when we go to council to present the plan?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
I'm fine with that. Okay, so I think that's what we needed to do here.
Yep.
Yeah, that gives me
Do we
direction.
want to just start with that, but other ideas were relief? See if we could do a landscaper program, get them to do it, grants, fundraisers. Oh, and then this has come up a couple times. I'm not sure we ever decided anything on it. Can homeowners opt out of trees?
So the way we've done it before is, it's our right of way. We decide what goes where, but, if there's an opposition to it, so we send out a letter. Like in Layton Park, we sent out a letter asking the residents, if they're willing to maintain, to water the tree, et cetera. And we had 2 people came back saying they prefer not to have one in their right of way. In this case, though, and the difference between here and Layton Park is in Layton Park, they don't have sidewalks there. So we were putting it somewhere on what they view as their yard. Here we have sidewalks, so we'd be putting it on the inside of the street. So I don't think this is one of those ones we probably should let people opt out, because it's clearly not on their yard. It's within the city's right of way, as opposed to before Layton Park. they think of it as being in their yard because they don't have a sidewalk. that's
Lake
connected.
Street's got sidewalks.
Yeah.
Ann Street doesn't,
Good point.
Yeah,
so.
So why don't we just continue with what we've done so far as Ann Street, you know, if somebody really doesn't want it.
yep, we just send a letter saying that this is happening.
Okay, I think this is a good first step in implementation, and then let's see how far we get. And this may take care of phase 1, 2024, and then we can.
Some
come
of the
back.
other ideas for next year, yeah.
Yeah.
Cool.
Okay, let's see, should we move on to the next item,
Yes, this is
Victor?
where
Yeah.
John's here for.
Zoning ordinance recommendations. Do you want to
Okay.
give us some background on that?
Yeah, I will, and I'll let John talk a little bit, but basically, the planning commission is updating their zoning code. And they're on the final leg here, the final stretch. In our tree plan, we've had several goals related to the regulation of, to relate to making recommendations to the planning commission and council about incorporating trees and tree planting standards into the zoning code. I pulled out those ones, they're on the screen here. We have about, 9 or so, goals in our tree plan. And then Becca and Rader and John here, Michelangeli is as our planning consultant has, shared with me the landscaping, and parking lot landscaping requirements that revolve around trees. So he can maybe explain to you what's in our current code, then maybe we can look at our goals list and then see if it's appropriate to add any of those into the zoning code. If you want to go,
Good.
John?
So these are our goals and we're talking about implementing them into,
Whether or not we
The
want to put them
zoning
in the
stuff.
zoning code, yep.
okay, got it.
We have a section in the zoning ordinance, section 6.5, that talks about landscaping. And we have a discussion on what landscape plan requirements should include. And then we have a chart that talks about where landscaping buffers and screen walls and fences are going to be required between opposing land use districts, zoning districts. I saw in your goals, just watching, that there's a couple of things that we may need to modify in order to meet what your goals are. For example, under parking lot landscaping, we have one tree for every 8 parking spaces. And I think you have 5 listed in your goals.
1 tree for 5 spaces.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I'm not exactly sure how we came up with that, like the 1 for 8, is that something that is common or?
That's common. I'm not adverse 1 to 5. I think that you just, if it's the goal of the advisory board to require more tree plantings around parking facilities, I'm happy with the ratio that you want to use. So, I mean, I can make that change.
So a parking space is what, 8 feet wide?
9 by 18.
9, let's just say 10 for easy math. So
10
that
by
would
20,
be-
so that'd be 200 square feet. So if you have 5, that would be, I thought for every 1,000 square feet of pavement, you would want 1 tree.
So let me think about that. I was thinking more in terms of like the linear aspect.
Linear
So
would be. you'd
50
have-
feet
would
roughly.
Have 100 feet for 1, every 100 feet of pavement, you would have 1 tree.
That's if you did the 5.
That, yes, a 5.
Times
So
8
for every
sounds-
50 feet, you would, for every 50 feet, you would have 1 tree.
Whereas in what you've got drafted right now is 80 feet.
Yeah. So, and I'm thinking
50
about
feet
it.
Sounds a lot better.
I'm thinking a lot, I'm thinking in terms of the new dimensions or the dimensions for the minimum lot size are gonna be 52 feet wide.
Mhm.
So you would want to at least have one street tree for every lot. So it would make sense to change it from 8 to 5, so it's consistent with
Yeah,
that. So,
I agree.
I think aesthetically that's
yeah.
a better fit,
Yeah.
maybe, yeah.
Now,
Okay,
relative to green belts, there's a provision in the proposed code that the area that would be between, let's say you live on a street that has a sidewalk in the front of the building. Okay, that would be, we refer to that as the front yard green belt. Okay, people usually have lawns or plantings. we're requiring a minimum of one deciduous tree for every 30 lineal feet. Okay, or one ornamental tree for every 20 lineal feet. So we're trying to make sure that at least on every lot, new lot, that there is at least one tree planted on the lot, not in the public right of way, but in the private property. Does that make sense for the group?
Yeah, I think so.
Okay. Now, if somebody, there's not much vacant property left in town to do a subdivision or a site condo. But if there is, we're gonna require, and this is again, I think it matches what you're thinking about. It says that the internal public or private street shall be landscaped with a minimum of one tree for every 50 feet. So again, that matches what you're requiring for a parking lot. So that's one per 50.
Okay.
Okay, so we have that.
Does this cover all of the types of developments there can be, like PUDs and,
Yes.
okay,
Um,
cottage courts?
Yes, now, the one thing that I wanted to address with you, I think I see that you have already outlined it, is that I'm specifying that the species types that are used by any developer have to be recommended in the recommended planning guidelines for municipalities that's published by the Northwest Michigan Invasive Species Network.
Where is that?
On the ordinance, it would be section 6.5.11.
Last page.
It's the last page. And the reason why I use this is that it's got a recommended planting list for indigenous plants that are found in Northwest Michigan. And then it's got a very comprehensive list what are invasive species, which you've already got listed on your sheet. We did have one planning commissioner, and I'll ask the arborist. She preferred that we use the American Nurseryman book on plant materials, but
That's gonna be more.
that's more general. I thought the more specific we could get to this area would be better off.
I mean, that's a standard on how the planning dimensions of the propagation procedures for planting stuff.
Okay.
I mean, and I would say, but normally my politics would say I'm against lists that don't have a reason or a reason or a mechanism to update. Because if the one you list and it becomes part of code or whatnot, if that list disappears or is no longer updated and something changes, we're stuck with something we can't deal with. And a good example of that, like normally maples are heavily planted, is a tree to replace things like elms, and now they're considered invasive by a lot of entities.
Right.
But they were promoted
Right.
by a lot of organizations, hence green ash.
Well, so
and
we bought a model.
Yeah, right, and rationale, and so I would just say, is there, it's just a practicality issue, is there a way to include why invasives are bad in the language and why, or how that would be updated if this list is no longer available?
Well, in some ordinances, they just have a list of plant materials that are allowed and plant materials that are not allowed.
Right.
And that could take up 2 or 3 pages. I've always found that this publication, has all of the indigenous plant materials for Northwest Michigan, plus all the invasives that you're already referencing. So instead of having them all listed in the ordinance, you can just consult the guide that's online. But I get what
I guess it best,
Yeah.
so
I mean,
if there's a
and I have to say, Dan has done a great job of fleshing out a lot of the stuff that's been problematic.
Yeah.
With some of us.
But I don't think
Probably
we-
inclusive.
But as long
I
as-
don't think if there's a link to here, but I get what Ben's saying also, let's say something happens with this link is no longer good, like they don't no longer publish a list. Maybe we have something,
Their
in
funding
there.
is cut.
either something like that, do we have just a
caveat.
caveat saying if not, so then we consult, an arborist or something like that's an expert.
But this
I do
prefers-
wonder about the list of trees that are good, though. Is it just natives? Because we found we're having a hard time just using natives, like we have.
I think
so
it's
many
native trees that match this environment. I mean, you have to take a look at the list. It's fairly comprehensive. It's not only trees, but they have shrubs, plants, perennials that are typically
Well, I
found.
guess we can look at it, but there's a lot of trees that we use that aren't native
Good.
to diversify our.
But this would
urban
be,
There are native trees that are problematic as well.
Well, I mean, give me a list. I mean, the one I found that I fall back on is the one that I've referenced.
See, it seems to me though, by referencing a list that's updated by some sort of authority makes more sense than us putting a list and having to adjust the zoning code.
But we're
That's
just
my
saying that
concern.
we have philosophical differences, like
Okay.
we're saying not all native trees are good. And
Well,
there are.
A
non-natives that are good.
suggestion would be that the city put a list together of acceptable and invasive species. And then list that on your website, and then that's what's referenced in the zoning code. That way you're updating it. We don't have to rely on
We actually got
nonprofit.
that.
Yeah, and I guess that's what I was saying. My original intent was to say, why don't we include why we don't want these plants? Because if we have a list that gives 30 trees and say, well, you can plant these 30 trees, people are gonna plant the most cost-effective tree every time they have to do this, right? That's why we have a lot of Norway maples, because they're easily available. They were planted heavily, they replaced people's elm trees, and now we've got, 30% of our trees in inventory are some type of maple tree, mostly Norway maples, because people were following the suggestion. The only thing I was asking is if there's a way to include language that says, the reason we don't want these trees or plants or whatever is because they readily see, they're weak wooded, they're disease prone, whatever that criteria is. And so then that,
well, another way to address that is to add that, and then maybe, John, I think,
and maybe that's just a footnote.
well,
that's there,
no, I think
what Dan's already.
instead of saying the size and spacing requirements shall be determined by the administrative committee, the species size and space. And that way the administrative committee will review the species as well. And if we need a question or ask our arborist whether these are good trees to plant.
And then.
Yeah, I'm kind of writing on the fly here. I'm thinking that we could say where landscaping is required, only those plant materials approved by the city's tree advisory board shall be used. And then get rid of the citation and say invasive plants are not allowed. I don't know necessarily we have to have a whole list of invasive plants.
Well, and not to beat this thing to death, but that's why I'm saying if we list why we're saying it's invasive, then we can use those criteria to determine and then we can use those criteria to make our determinations.
Well, why don't you, as the city arborist, send me an email what you think the criteria is that would constitute an
Okay.
invasive species?
We can do that.
Yeah, that way I can just insert it into the code.
Can you do that?
Yeah, and I mean, I would keep what's there. I'm not saying that I'm in disagreement with using that list. Just making the addition that the city still has the ability to make the decision around that list if it needs.
Okay.
Yeah, I think that's fair. We'll get that, if you can do that this afternoon. This week.
Yeah, we're trying to draft this as fast as possible. So if you could give me that language this afternoon, that would be great.
Now,
Send it
now,
send it to Victor and then he can get.
Yeah.
There's not responding to the M4.
Jen, I just had a question
Yeah.
about your chart here, about when a buffer screen wall or fence is required. Why would one be required between two residential
That's
districts?
changed.
It has changed.
Yeah, we don't require a screen wall between a residential neighborhood or the residential waterfront.
Okay,
So they're not
Okay.
they're not gonna.
that was my
So-
question.
what actually, can you just explain that table a little bit better? I felt like I looked at
Maybe
it that
probably,
way.
this is the newer table.
Okay,
You see the newer one now.
so basically this is just saying when you have to have a
Correct.
screen.
If you look at the district.
Okay,
You look at this district and then find the district that you're next to,
right,
and if it's got an X, then you have to provide screening.
got it. Okay,
Okay.
I wanted to make sure I
Yep.
had that. Thank you.
I had a question about the warranty too. I think, we for a while talked about 3 years. I just don't know if that's that realistic. I mean, it's just very not common in the industry.
What's common in the industry, 2?
One.
A warranty, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of wholesalers have dropped warranties now.
I was gonna say,
I'm just afraid we're gonna pay
But-
so much more for trees, like with
Well,
somebody.
are we paying for this or is the applicant is?
The applicant's paying for it.
This is a request that the applicant will be responsible
Yes.
for this after.
So they're warranting that they have a tree there for 3 years.
And then they're gonna charge us twice as much for that
Why would they
tree
charge us?
charge them.
on the quote.
So, okay, that's what you're saying. I think,
Yeah.
Where,
Well, we don't have a warranty in here. What we have under installation, maintenance and completion, it says the owner of the property required to be landscaped by this ordinance shall maintain such landscaping in a strong and healthy condition, free from refuse, debris, and insects. All materials used to satisfy the requirements that become unhealthy or dead shall be replaced within 1 year of damage or death or the next appropriate planning period, whichever comes first. So it doesn't
Is this
specify,
for perpetuity?
yes, oh, yes.
Yeah, that's what I was getting. They have to, that's
Yeah.
their requirement.
Yeah, if somebody builds a parking lot, and landscapes it, in 5 years from now,
It dies.
it dies, the trees are dead or the shrubs are burned up and they're dead, they're required, zoning administrator can require them to.
Okay, yep, I was getting sideways with the question there.
Okay,
Okay.
I think, the one before, but I know Brad, you probably want her to speak on something. Yes. Okay,
Yeah.
really quick, the one thing that we have that, and Kathy brought this up as a goal for this tree plan was, we want to consider clear cutting of properties and a recommendation that have some sort of language about not clear cutting properties or not.
Would you mind investigating it with Jim Ringler first and just see if that's even something that's advisable?
I don't know, is that off, do you find that often in zoning codes?
I know that a couple of townships that are experiencing clear cutting are contemplating on putting provisions in place.
But there's
Yeah.
not many that have.
I'd like to have a definition of what people say clear cutting, and I'm like, oh, okay,
Well,
what does
there's,
that
I
mean?
mean, I mean, the arborist probably knows, but what I'm saying happened, you got clear cutting going on where every tree is cut on the property. And then you have selective clearing where they go through and they tag ones and then they go in and they selectively.
Well, the thing that's really hard there is the definition is ambiguous at some points. I mean, if you were to look at 4 forestry text, you might find 4 different definitions
Yeah.
about. And so like a lot of times when we report, right, we define clear cutting as being an opening larger than the tallest tree in the inventory when we start. So I think what Kathy and everybody has said before is that it's kind of hard if you've got a 50-foot wide lot and there's one tree and it's in the one place you can build. Like, it may have to go, but that's
Clear cut.
by definition a clear cut.
Yeah,
And
but
so
it's like, yeah,
we have to be real careful about how we.
exactly,
do
that's
it.
my-
I agree with
think
Dan.
again, it's really important.
I think, and more investigation is probably.
Yeah, I
required.
stayed away from it. I didn't put
Yeah,
clear cutting.
let's do some more investigation, because that's right, these definitions, I didn't even think about one tree on a property would be a clear cut. So, all right. Are you guys comfortable with these?
Yes,
I
yeah.
think.
You good?
I think we do
Okay, I'll
have-
make the modifications and then I'll wait and get your,
Do you want me to email them directly or through?
You can email him directly too, that's fine.
yeah,
I can give him, all
I'll give you a card.
right,
Thanks for coming.
Hey, you're welcome, thank you.
wow, yeah.
And do we have Brad here to talk to us?
yeah, Brad is here because on, actually, item F2, we had.
Can we introduce Brad? for-
Yeah, but Tally had asked, we know how we asked to look at different areas, we can, of course, so if you want to explain, Tally, what Brad's doing here.
Does everybody know Brad, first of all?
No,
No,
The superintendent of Harvard Friends School.
Okay,
great.
nice to meet you.
We were discussing the creation of a pocket forest across school properties, so I asked him about it because I think you have the authority over it.
so that's something that we had ideas, like where can we create some of like little pocket for, so.
What do you think of that, Brad?
Yeah, I think it's a great idea. Just we get more information, talk to our school board about it. I think they'd be behind.
Where property are you thinking of that you guys have?
It's been on what. I'm not an expert in pocket forest, so whatever that is, the definition of it, we could probably try to figure out. Where we have stuff that we can do.
I think we just need a clear area, or we could tag on to an existing like naturalized area. Usually if we're thinking about working with Relief, then that's what we get 20 trees
Yeah, we
usually.
can get 15 to 25 trees from them.
Yeah. And so that would be the tree level. We would also try and do some understory stuff too. Would the teachers be interested in working in on a curriculum basis?
We have an environmental science class.
Yeah,
So yeah, I mean, there's all kinds of groups that can probably, groups, classes. But in all levels.
Yeah.
So elementary all the way through. Yeah, if you just give me this, like the parameters, like definitely we can look at. With the school board, like, hey, what, I think it's an awesome idea, where can we do it and. Talk to the teachers about, okay, how can we do it?
and then how involved do you want to be? Do you want to give it to the kids to run with it? Like do research on how to reforest property, or would you like us to get some of that legwork done, or do you want to talk to them first maybe?
I think you can just give me like an overview of it all,
Mhm.
I can go to them and see, cause like I said, we have that environmental science class, are you in that class?
No, but my friends.
So they have an environmental science class, I mean, it's every semester, so.
I think they'd learn a lot.
Yeah, when you have kids in that class, usually they're juniors and seniors, so they'd be able to drive too, so if it was somewhere they could get to it, we could also, when we. Bus kids across. It's across town from the middle school to high school in Harbor Springs, you know, some bigger high school, that's campus. Here's across town, we take bus elementary kids to the pool or whatever it might be, so we can do things like that. I think it's a great idea.
I think it's awesome because, well, so then what we can do maybe next meeting, start thinking about how we
Yes.
can create something and I can give it to me and I can share that with Brad and then give you that information and then we can talk about location and then the details afterwards. But I guess if Brad has an overview of kind of what we want to do. Because yeah, pocket forest. I'm not
It's sort
sure.
of an experiment, you know, it's
You know what I
not,
mean, like this how big a space
wildlife
we
needs
need.
to be able to get through a community.
And I know that the idea is we,
Yeah.
we tag the trees, what species they are and, kind of little, it'd be pretty cool, and Ben, get involved as you want. Give me the tree climbing lessons, well, not on those trees.
Actually, this is gonna date me, because like predecessor to your predecessor to, but like at one point, we actually did climbing demonstrations with City Okra. Which, in front of the high school, so that'd be something that's not for them.
This could be a really fun Arbor Day celebration thing
Yeah.
too. Get the kids involved and then we could get some volunteers. Get out the George Foreman, do some hot dogs.
Yeah, let's make an event out of it, yeah, all right, so
We'll put that on the
Yeah,
agenda for next,
yeah. We'll put that on the agenda.
And how about if we try and come up with an idea for how we're gonna discuss maintenance and.
Yeah, that's
Yeah.
also on the agenda, those two things. Okay. Cool, sorry to make you wait all this time.
No problem.
So for you.
It's worth a wait. I'm really excited. I think it's gonna be maybe the funnest project we work on this year.
Think so too.
All right,
When you can bring like some of the other classes we have a drones class.
Oh, yeah.
They can, there's all kinds of stuff.
yeah.
Hey, mapping, they can map where the trees are located, GIS.
Yeah, they're doing stuff with the construction we have going on right now as well, and kids are learning how to do that, or they'll do other projects like with the excavating companies, or go out, that kind of stuff.
Do you have like
Search and rescue and that kind of thing. So-
outside remote classrooms? My kids used to have that. Maybe we make a little classroom area adjacent or something.
And that many trees, it's not just about the trees, it creates a whole habitat, that will bring in all kinds of birds and
Wildlife,
animals and other things. So,
I think it's awesome.
Well, thanks, Talia, for bringing it up,
Great.
appreciate it.
Thank you.
I'm the only one who followed through with the assignment that we had to look at areas in town that could be pocket forests.
Well, the other one I had been thinking about was City Hall because it'd be so easy to take care of,
But this is a better idea.
I think this is better.
Yes, you're gonna be in charge of maintaining the watering.
Yeah.
Awesome, thanks, Brad, we'll be in touch then. Next couple months.
Thank you so much for coming today.
Yeah.
Okay, last but not least, last year we did a tree board update for council and we'll do it again this year. And I was going to suggest
Street tree plan.
the street tree
Yeah.
plan, because that's mainly what we've been working on this
Yeah.
year. And we also can do a little blurb about our usual stuff, the articles in the paper, Arbor Day.
Yeah, I'm fine. Whenever you have that ready, I mean, well, obviously you have the,
Yeah.
whenever
we're
you
kinda
feel comfortable
little
going in
bit
front of,
more,
yeah,
yeah.
whenever you feel comfortable going in front of the board.
Yeah. Okay. And well, I think Parks is first meeting in May, so would we try and not be at the same meeting, maybe the second meeting, ending March, sorry.
Yeah, it doesn't matter, whatever you feel comfortable with.
Okay,
we can-
good.
we can do it. So for the next agenda, what I have is, we'll do talk about the pocket forest, the maintenance, and then, we're gonna do a request for funding to council that'll be part of the presentation.
Mhm.
So the third thing I'll do is organize the goals that we had selected earlier. To work on
Yes.
this year, I'll come back with, a list of how to attack those goals.
Yeah, I think that would be great. And
I think
then
that should be enough. for
again,
that.
just semantics, you know, the drive-by or the. whatever.
Yeah, I'll talk about that with.
Yep. Super. Okay, good meeting, guys. Thank you.
Cool. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you for serving.
Yeah, thank you.
It's a lot of work.